I had on my own seen stories about Trump University in the, I think it was in the New York Post. And the story interested me because it didn't, I mean, they were saying in essence that they were charging $30,000, $35,000, $36,000, whatever it is, for this. In writing mode, I saw this Trump story and I thought, well, what is this? Because it just didn't seem rational to me. Why would a New York State Attorney General be looking into something like this? Politics being what it is in New York State, and attorney generals like Andrew Cuomo becoming governor, I assume this guy has ambitions. So I looked into it, and I must have contacted the Trump office at some point. I knew Roger Stone, who was close to him from Reagan days, and I guess that was it. I contacted Roger, and he sent some information to me, and I wrote this out. And I just thought, this is weird. Why is this guy doing this? And I looked into the guy's background, and I don't know if you follow the ins and outs of New York State politics, but man, the New York State Senate and the New York State Assembly,
it's almost as bad as here.
on a bipartisan basis, has been pretty corrupt. Yeah. The Republican majority leader of the Senate and the Democratic Speaker of the House, I mean, and more. So I found this state senator who had been convicted of, she was a Democrat from Queens, and she'd set up a charity fund which she was skimming, and the feds went after her, and to give her some leniency, she wore a wire and invited all these pals to her house in Queens, and they recorded the whole thing. One of the people there had a connection to the Attorney General, who was a former state senator himself. And then I found a sentencing memorandum in federal court in which she said he's corrupt. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, maybe. So I just keep writing these stories, just reporting facts. So come Labor Day weekend of 2013, Saturday of that weekend, the phone rings. I'm in my office and I pick up the phone. And when you hear a familiar voice on the phone and you can't place it, and this voice says, "Jeffrey?" And I said, "Yes." "This is Donald Trump." And I'm thinking, you've got to be right. Well, it was Donald Trump. And we talked, and he said, "I want to thank you for writing these things. The guy is," and then he proceeds to tell me this story that the guy had come to him for campaign funds, gotten some, then came back, gotten more. Then he wanted Ivanka to throw a breakfast for him, which she did. Then he starts saying to them, that thing with Trump University? Don't worry about it. And I mean, Trump was, suffice to say, not happy. Yeah. And I'm thinking this is your basic shakedown. So in looking some more, I came across an editorial in the Wall Street Journal and a story in Reuters, both of which involved the Attorney General. Nothing had to do with Trump. Yeah. And in both cases, they were separate stories about separate issues. They used the word shakedown, that this is what the guy does. So, of course, in borrowing from the New York Post and headlines, I started calling the guy Shakedown Schneiderman, and wrote these things. Well, that was the beginning of our connection. The American Spectator, unbeknownst to me, because I don't have anything to do with I just write for it, right? And they have a big annual dinner every year. And they have the T. Boone Pickens Entrepreneurial Award, which is given out to various business types. And they had selected Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. So then I learned that this is the case. I'm going to go to the dinner anyway. Right. And I get this call from his office, Mr. Trump would like you to fly down with him. And I said, well, I'll get back to you. Now, in my life, I have made this trek between Camp Hill and Washington, D.C. by car. It's like going to the grocery store at this point in life. And I thought, I'm just going to drive down there. I mean, this is crazy. And a cousin of mine happened to call. She lives in Binghamton. And I was saying, you know, you'll never believe this, Donald Trump. And she said, well, you're going to do it, aren't you? And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. You know, Mom. And she says, look, I'm coming there to take care of your mother. You're going to go fly down with Donald Trump. What, are you kidding me? So I got up at the crack of dawn, drove to Washington, parked the car in the hotel, hopped the train, went to New York, walked up to Trump Tower. They, you know, took me up right away to his office, took me right in. We hit it off. We went up to his apartment there on the top 3 floors while he went in to change, and I got a little tour. And as I always say, it's just like your place and mine. The floors are marble, the fixtures in the bathroom are gold, and the ceilings are frescoes. And of course, stunning views of Manhattan in all directions, New Jersey, Long Island, everything. So then he reappears, and we go downstairs, and we go out to LaGuardia, and he leans over casually. We're in the back of this limo. As we cross in the East River, he leans over and says, oh, and that one's mine. He points to whatever it is next to next to the United Nations. So we get on the plane, we fly down. It's not the big 757. He said that he didn't like to use it all the time. But he says, I always get grief for it, you know, from liberals and all this sort of thing. So we flew on his Citation. He says, this will be faster. We were there in 28 minutes, believe it or not. And as we're getting ready to land, he's going to go into the bathroom and straighten up. And we're sitting like this, you know, right across from it. And he gets up and sits down again and goes like this with his hand, you know, so you can see his hairline. Because he said, I'm going to comb my hair. And he says, you know, I don't get it with the hair. Barbara Walters wants to know about the hair. Greta Van Susteren wants to know about the hair. He says, you know, I'm worth $10 billion. Don't you think with that much money, if this were a toupee, I could get a better one than this? I laughed. So, and we went to the dinner. I introduced him. Interestingly, the other political celebrity there that night was Ted Cruz. And if you go on YouTube, either the American Spectator or somebody posted Trump and Cruz from that night in separate videos where they're giving accolades to one another. So at the end of the evening, he said, well, I'll call you. And I thought, right, you know. Well, he did call. And ever since, we've hit it off. I went to interview him in 2014 for the Spectator. He calls from time to time. He called a couple weeks ago and just chats, you know. And of course, he knows
Get your advice.
he knows my situation. So, you know, how's Mom? You know, all of this kind of thing. On occasion, you know, he'll ask, you know, what do you think about this or what do you think about that? And I, you know, tell him. You know, he can take it or leave it. So that's basically it.